Hello, this is Sophie Lawson from sophielawson.com, and this is episode 257 of the Sophie Art Podcast, which is a little podcast to do about the art and things with me co-host lilDENNiS. And lilDENNiS is with us today. Straight in with the kitty kisses, because today we're doing this month for art class. And what I do on these is I go through my sketchbooks and talk about the past month of art class. So let's get into this one. So little kitty kisses. They've had double kisses today. Doing. lilDENNiS has let us in. Yeah. So lilDENNiS and Kitty, they're going to sit over here today. So what I do on these, I haven't done one of these for ages. This is the first one of the year. And these are supposed to be monthly, but I haven't been going to art class. So, but I have still been doing a little bit of drawing. So what happened, the last one of these was in, I think it was the 1st of December 2022. And what happened was in December, I missed 2 weeks and I went to the Christmas one. And then straight after Christmas we had 3 weeks off. And I went to go back and I just started my job. I started a new job. So I've been very, very tired. Well, not very tired, but what happens is if I go to art class, because I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to work, art class is at night time. And by the time I get home, I end up only having about 4 hours sleep. So because I'm doing two jobs now, I've basically it's excuses, I suppose. Yeah. It is. At first I just thought I need a couple weeks of this job, but what's happened is, as I've said before, it's amazing how when you sort of break a habit, before you know it, like months have passed. So what happened was the whole of basically at some point I decided I'm going to take the whole of January off, and then when it got to the first Saturday of February 2023, what I said to myself was, I said I'm going to get out sketching again now. So even though it's been really, really cold, very cold, I've been going out sketching on the Saturdays. So what I do is what happened is during the summer of each year in 2022, every Saturday mornings we would go out plein air sketching and painting with the art class. And then when it started to get a bit cold, they stopped doing it, but I carried on going out all the way up until December. And it just got so cold that and it was raining and everything. So I decided I was going to take a little bit of time off. I wish I hadn't really, but I'm back into it now, which is cool, but only a little bit. But what I think to myself is, if you've only got 10 minutes to do a drawing, I'd rather have 10 minutes to do a drawing and do a little drawing in 10 minutes than just say to myself, rather than say, well, I've only got 10 minutes so I won't bother. Because I think, like, if I've only got 10 minutes, then I've only got 10 minutes. So I've got one little painting. The first one is from the 4th of February. So I haven't got anything from art class, but from my little sketches outside, the first one I've got is, and also you can watch this as a video on YouTube if you want, at youtube.com/Sophie Lawson, and you'll be able to see these. But the first one is a little watercolour painting with like fine liners and the paints, and well, the funny thing is there was a little bird sat on a lamppost, so I got him in, but I drew him way too big. Well, I kind of like that he's very big. But the favourite thing about this one for me was trying to capture the rust in the bench. I sat on a metal bench, and I was trying to. I sort of found the rust very attractive, which is quite interesting because I feel like we associate rust with like decay and rotting and negative, but for me it looked really beautiful, because what you had like the green of the the bench merging with the rust, as if the rust was sort of taking over. I liked it, I did. But the hardest thing for me on this one was trying to capture the colour of the ground, like the gravel. But I really enjoyed that one. So that was on the 4th of February. And then the rest of them are in my other sketchbook, which is like my people sketching. So one of my favourite things to do is going out sketching people, like really quickly. So you've only got like 30 seconds or something. Sometimes you've only got like 10 seconds to capture someone. Because what I do is I sit on a bench in town or in a park or something, and as people are walking past, you quickly capture them. But what happens is it's a very complex skill, really, because you're sort of drawing what you see, but you're also having to remember what you've seen, because as you're sketching the person, they're moving, so they're going out of their like proportions are changing, so you've got to try and capture them. So what I do is I look at them for about a few seconds, try to capture them and try to remember the pose that they were in, and then as I keep looking up to look at them, as they're walking off, I'm looking at them thinking they're wearing a coat or something, and what I do is I'll try to get that coat, that when I look at them, even though they're in a different position, I'm just using them as like a reference, really. So it's almost like I'm using my imagination with the reference. So the first one from the 11th of February, where was this one then? I think this was in the same park. I think because this was in Freedom Fields Park. No, it wasn't. This one was in town. I know where this was. This was up the top of town. So what happened was I'd finished work and I was going to meet me mum in town. So I sat there for a few minutes, and whilst I was waiting for my mum, I did some sketching. And the first thing is, I drew a little pigeon, because what happened was I was sketching and a little pigeon came right up close to me. And it's something I've noticed a lot is, especially birds, they seem to be fascinated by, well, when I'm painting or sketching, they seem to be fascinated. I don't know if it's because they're expecting food or something, but I like to think it's because they can sort of feel the creative energy or something. Because somebody said in one of my videos, someone said that birds can see, I think it's electromagnetic frequencies or something, whereas humans can't see it. So I'm wondering if when you're sketching, what if whilst you're sketching, you're sending out like an electromagnetic signal or something, and maybe the birds are seeing it or something. But what I loved about this pigeon was, as I was watching it moving around, I noticed its back was like the shape of a heart, like its wings were like a heart. And what's quite interesting about this is, I'm not sure if this was before or after, but I recently did a quick look of a book called Fabulous Figures or something. I think it's called Fabulous Figures. And what the artist did on there was, all of her female figures that she draws and paints, she starts with the heart shape. Yeah, so it's cool, it is. But that's kind of like the first time I've really seen a heart in the back of a bird's wings, which was cool. Then we had this bloke, there was a bloke standing around smoking, so I could capture him, and also a structure. There's a building that I was trying to capture as well. So I got, in one page I've got a bit of everything. I've got animals, humans, and like structure. So you've got like straight edges and curves. And then the next one I just did a load of little people moving around. They're quite cool, they are. I love looking at people when I'm sketching, because what happens is people with, say, fat body shapes, again, very much like the rusty thing. Whereas like you think rusty is negative or bad, when you're painting it, it's beautiful. It's a bit like fat people. Fat people seem to be, people think that fat is bad and negative, but they actually make really beautiful shapes. I would say it's more interesting to sketch fat people than thinny people. Something like that. So again, who's to say, but what I also like is bags, because when I'm in town, very often people are walking around with rucksacks on and stuff, or handbags, and there's something about the shape of a bag on the back of a body, I love it, and also hoods. I'm always drawn to hoods for some reason. And there's also some little birds flying about, or then I just did some more of the, again, I like capturing people who are standing still, because even though you might have somebody standing completely straight in a boring thing, somehow when you're sketching people, somehow you capture, I don't know how you do it, but somehow you capture them, so you can sort of feel like their emotions in your little sketches. I don't know how that happens. Then there's somebody walking along with a bike helmet. Oh yeah, that's the same. Oh, he must have had a big massive raincoat on or something. I'm just drawn to interesting shapes. That's what I like. Yeah, and there must have been somebody sitting down wearing boots or something and liked the shape of the boots. So I captured the boots as well. But what I've noticed is I love drawing hoodies, bags and long hair. Sexy long hair. So all of these were done with graphite pencils. There's a nice one here of a lady. She had a little a beanie hat on and one of those big long puffy jacket things. And she had a little handbag as well. So again, she's in quite a static pose, I suppose, but there's a niceness about her. Like you can sort of feel her huddled up because it was quite cold that day. Oh, this is another thing as well, because I was sat there for about 20-30 minutes sketching and I felt completely fine. As soon as I stopped sketching, I was freezing. My fingers were like ice, because I get this thing where if I'm out in the cold for too long, I don't even have to be out in the cold. If I'm outside, my fingers will go white. So I have to always wear gloves. But what happened was, so what it is, what I've noticed when I'm sketching, I'm so in the moment, I suppose, I can't feel temperatures. It's only when I stop sketching and drawing that I suddenly realise that I'm cold. So that to me says, in a strange way, it's saying that temperatures aren't actually real, or the senses aren't real. And I've noticed it as well when I go out doing, in the middle of the woods doing photos, dressed up doing photos, posing and things. Again, it's the same thing. I get so lost in the poses, I could spend an hour posing for photos. As soon as I stop posing, I suddenly realise how cold I am. So there is something there whereby you're getting, it's almost like you're putting yourself into the creative experience. You lose contact with your senses. It's really interesting, it is. A really good one for me is if you can sit down somewhere in town or something and find a what's it called? A square structure or something that people will sit on. That makes for really good, I think that's a good drawing practice, because you have to draw the person sitting on straight edges. For me, that's not only do you get people sitting on it, which is it means they're going to be there for at least a couple minutes, so you've got more time to capture them, but it's also the hardest thing as well. What it is for me. This next one was from the 18th of February, and this one, I didn't do very much on this one. So what happened was I went down to Tor Point, which is about an hour an hour's walk, I suppose. And then you get onto this ferry, go across the water, and you're in Tor Point. So I went over there to get some comics, which I'd seen on Facebook Marketplace, and whilst I was sat on the ferry, I did some sketching. But I didn't have as much time as I thought I would. So the first one, I was sat behind this bloke, so I started sketching him. I just got him sitting there, he had his glasses on and things. Then I wanted to draw a little Peter the Penguin, because I like Peter the Penguin. And then I was listening to a podcast. I think it was no, I'm not sure. I know what it was. It was a Mind Drops, Third Eye Drops, that's it. Third Eye Drops I was listening to. And what they said on this was Thanksgiving. They were talking about Thanksgiving, and they said 2 or 3 memories you feel shame for, heal it via writing or talking. So what they were saying was, like, be thankful for these memories, but think about 2 or 3 memories you feel shame for, and then if you write and talk about them, you can actually heal them. So like one of them for me is, I got a couple actually. Because I love animals. When I was little though, I sort of, for some reason I was, I suppose cruel, but I didn't mean to be cruel. But I had these gerbils, and what I would do is I'd put them in my sock and swing the sock around. So they would be inside the sock, like, and they must have felt incredible G-forces. So for me, I think it was fun. I'm not sure whether they enjoyed that or not. And that's one of them. And the other one is I had these fish. And for this one, I was about 22. So I was a lot older now. So I should have known better. But I ended up not wanting these fish. So what I did was I stopped feeding them. And then one day I opened the cupboard where the fish were, and basically these fish had rotted. And they were like rotted in half and stuff. It was horrible. And the water stunk of death. Like proper nasty it was. And I didn't really think much of it at the time, but as I got older and I've sort of started meditating and everything, I realised how horrible that was, what I did there. And I could say, well, I was young, I should have, but the thing is, I was about 22 then, 24. So really, that's old enough to know better. But I just think that's a really good... I wrote it down on my sketchbook because I thought that I need to remember that. Things I feel shame for, heal them by writing and talking. And then the next thing I did was because what I do is there's this thing where what you do is you get your pencil and you just draw a squiggly shape, like a line. For me, I'd normally do a line, just do a random line, and then I have to try and turn that line into like a creature or a character or something. So the first one, I did this weird line, and then I sort of turned it into like I turned it into like a person sort of thing. The next one, I did a strange shape. Again, turned it into like I don't know what that is, but it's like some sort of alien type thing. And then did another one, a bit like a bat. But I love doing that. And then the last thing I did was I did another Peter the Penguin. I did this little dog character that when I was a child, I always used to draw this little dog called Woof. And I had a red brush pen. I wanted to see what it would look like if I did a little character in black ink with red brush pen in the background, because I thought it looked quite cool. And then the last thing in my sketchbook, this was from last week, 25th of February 2023. So again, I went into Freedom Fields Park, and the reason I go into that park is because it's on the way home. And for this one, I only had like 10 minutes because I did 3 jobs on that Saturday. So I was 2 hours later than normal, and I'm already 2 hours later than I used to be. But I thought I'm not gonna go home without doing something. So I sat in the park, and I just focused on the lamp post, because in this park they've got these beautiful old, I want to say like Victorian or something, lamp posts, really proper old ones they were. And every time I've done so many sketches in this park, and I'm always drawn to these lamp posts. There's just something about them, I think they're cool, they are. So what I did was I focused on the lamp post, I sketched that out, and then right at the end I did some like little squiggles for trees in the background, trying to create like a depth thing. And then once I did that, what I did was I made the lamppost even darker to try and pop it forwards. Well, what I thought to myself was, even though I only had 10 minutes, I think maybe that is my favourite thing that I've drawn this month. I think it is. So like when I had the first one was the 4th of February, I probably had about 30 minutes on that one. And the one that I had less time on, I feel like I actually like it better. So for me, the main thing I've learnt this month at art class, it's not really art class, it is art class I suppose. It's my own personal art class outside. And I think the main thing I've learnt is, no matter how much time I've got, I can still do something. And it doesn't matter if it's rubbish. I'd rather do something rubbish than nothing at all. So that's it, I think. So lilDENNiS, he's going to get us out of this one. Boing! I really hope you enjoyed that, and all that's left is this week's inspirational quote. I've just got to go and find it, because it's on my computer. This week's inspirational quote is cool. It says, "Drawing takes time. A line has time in it." And that's by David Hockney. So what I love about that is, I've never thought about this before, but these drawings that we're doing in sketches and things, they are time. So what I think makes me think of is, everything that's moving is sort of like, it's a visual representation of like time, almost like I see it as like frames in a movie, where like you see frames per second. So like, when I heard that quote, what it made me think was, as you're sketching, you are sort of somehow, it's almost like the drawing is some sort of time machine. I can't explain it, but it's almost like that drawing has, the quote says, the line has time in it. So I thought it was brilliant, and it's quite interesting how this whole month of sketching it's all been about time, really. Limited time. That's it. So the big thing for me at the moment is time. So drawing takes time. A line has time in it. David Hockney. Thank you. Drawing takes time. Did you hear that?